Spiritual growth is not always easy. Come on, Danica, this is a great topic. I still feel dark heart. I still feel propelled. I still go into those states. But like I said, I go back faster. Even last week, I had another ego death, Danica. Spirit, like again, teaching me you're two in the outer. It's not that we're going backwards. This journey keeps going, but we keep shedding more of who we're not. We start to get so self-reliant. We start to create more of that resilience and this incredible knowingness. We are the love. We can give ourselves the validation. We don't need anything outside of ourselves. This is the thing about the heart work. We're going to a different place to find a solution than where the problem is. The problem is the thoughts, the overthinking mind. We're going to the heart, which is completely different energy field, completely different perceptions. Will give you completely different thoughts.
So good to see you in person again. Congratulations on how many books have you had now?
This one's my 8th.
I feel like they flow through you though. It's not like a forced thing. I feel like there was one book you're like, I don't know. And then I had to write this one. And
yeah.
Was this another occasion where a book just came through you? You had to write it as opposed to a publisher saying, okay, it's time for another one. We need another hit.
So they always say that. And I never act right away because I know it's going to be a crappy book, right?
Well, anything you force is crappy.
That's right. This book really was, of all my books, Danica, there's this word in Sanskrit, spanda, right? This divine inspiration. And so I started getting called to the heart when I was writing my last book, actually. I found some amazing research. And then I had always dug really deep into Yogananda's work. And I never read his guru's book. He wrote one book called The Holy Science, Swami Sri Yukteswar. And so I read this book and it blew me away. And I remember sitting in Hawaii in my hammock for months. I was just reading it over and over again. And there's this part where he talks about the 5 stages of the human heart that we all go through. So that was happening in parallel to me connecting with the Heart Math Institute and learning about this incredible new science of heart-brain communication.
Completely separately.
Oh, okay. But they knew of Yogananda, but they were doing it in a more scientific way. So I was connecting with them. I ultimately ended up doing a formal study with them. And then it was just so clear, okay, this is what's coming through, is writing about the heart. And not the sentimental, romantic heart we often hear about, but this practical heart wisdom, this intelligence that's largely untapped. That when I started learning about this, Danica, I thought I had energy before. I thought I was clear. This, as I would quantify it, made my energy 70% more. And my relationship with my husband.
Never known you to be a tired person, so.
Well, you know what it was is that I've always been into food and nutrition and good sleep and living this, non-toxic lifestyle. But as I got into the research, we don't realize how much we get drained with emotional turbulence. So for instance, 5 minutes of recalling anger tanks your IgA, which is related to immunity, for 6 hours. Just recalling anger. So let's say you call a friend and you complain about something that happened. Your immunity drops. Your hormones drop. Everything shifts. 2 minutes, Danica, of irritation. Let's say you're in the road and you're like, that guy cut me off, or, oh, I missed this stop light. 2 minutes puts into process 1,500 biochemical processes, which ultimately drain your energy. So through this work, which ties everything together that I've always talked about, nutrition, lifestyle, Ayurveda, this gateway of the heart steadies you emotionally, changes your perceptions, which then changes your thoughts and your energy, changes your life. It changes your hormonal balance. It changes your digestion. Everything changes from this power. So yes, it came. And when I learned about it, I started to learn about it. I was like, everybody has to know about it. So it started with me. It started to change my relationship with my family, with myself. Then I started to bring it into my client work. And I was seeing, people that had been struggling with food cravings for years get clarity, people that were really angry on set, or just people that were struggling with their relationships start to get really calm.
How did knowing about these 5 hearts play into your own life? Are there some stories?
First, I'll say the 5 heart stages are the dark heart, where your heart and brain aren't talking. So this is where you get those times. It could be periods, days, years, where you feel a lot of confusion, fear, overwhelm. You don't know what your purpose is. You just look at the world and you're like, this feels like a dark place because you are perceiving things in a dark way. The second stage is propelled. where I've spent a lot of my life. This is, this drive outside of yourself, perfectionism, achievement, this plan, and have this amount of kids by a certain time, or to make this much money, whatever it is. It's how you appear to other people, caring a lot about externals. Then there's the steady heart, where you start to come into this anchor in yourself and this fulfillment within yourself. And then it deepens into the devoted heart, where you experience more of the peace and the love and the compassion, which ironically, actually, because the level of coherence is so high, your heart brain is talking so much, you actually are able to create on a material level much more easily. And then the clear heart is where you become more aligned with the universal heart, this oneness. This is the field of synchronicities, miracles. So one of the things that I talk about in the book is, in our culture, Danica, you know this, there's all these movies where the hero, protagonist wakes up and says, I had the power and, is able to rescue that village or the plane or, whatever. They're able to rescue these people. But the heart journey is really about shifting into, there's a power moving through me. So it's very different. It's a very different, we're stepping into different fields. So it's not that we get to one stage and we stay there. It's not like I've arrived at the devoted heart. I feel a lot of that now, but there's moments where we feel fear. You could go on the news and something triggers you, or on social media. You could see an email that isn't your expectation. So you go into the stress of the propelled heart. So it's really important. Through each of the heart stage, I teach tools. And some of them are in the middle of life, 3 to 10 seconds, the heart align harmonize. So you can really stabilize yourself through the day. You know how to get out of the dark heart faster, and you're less triggered.
You have an experience, and then there's something that's been triggered in you, and you immediately go into a different stage of the heart or a different phase of a reality of the heart because of your own trigger. Right. And so am I understanding that right? And you enter these different phases. Maybe you spend more time in one that's slightly more evolved and more coherent, but essentially they're realities based on your perception.
Exactly. So we build what's called your coherence capacity over time. So for instance, the Heart Align meditation, which we did with the Heart Math Institute, found in just 4 to 5 times a week doing this meditation, which is less than 8 minutes, coherence went up 29% on average. So coherence means, like you said, a different perception, more clear, more expansive, more win-win, more, instead of the fake positive thinking, you can actually perceive things differently. So then your thoughts are naturally different. So, it changes everything. And I look back at those stages, to your point about how it's changed my life. I could see when I was in dark heart periods, my heart, my brain weren't talking scientifically, incoherence. And I chose relationships from a fear-based place. So I have abandonment issues. My mother went back to work when I was 2 weeks old. There was things I didn't even know about. I look back on those stages where I picked people, Danica, that were really nice, but I didn't love because they loved me more, and I felt safe that they wouldn't abandon me. But there was never that fulfillment. And then I can see when I was in that propelled, me having a partner that fit in, we knew the same people, we go to these events and, fancy things, and it fit the plan, and we lived in this fancy house. Even though when I met my husband, there was this incredible connection. I had steadied myself, but then when we got married, it brought up a lot of things, safety issues and things.
I love they were willing to share that.
I want to be honest. It's not like happily ever after. So the first 2 years, there was, I would feel, just scared and, kind of threatened. And then he would feel like, it just was this mismatch. So sometimes we, just need to be in separate rooms, or to be bickering and irritation. And so this work, I would say, Danica, honestly, has brought things 90% better, just because.
You know how many people are looking for 30% better? Imagine you're with your partner and you just want to have 30% less arguments. I mean, right? 30% more joy. This is 90% is incredible.
No, incredible. Okay, so I'll give you some simple steps here. The science is so powerful, and it overlays the spiritual, energetic. we are always emitting that energy.
Right.
And so even if we want to get along with our partner, even if we want to attract the kind of love that we want to attract, energy doesn't lie. So if there's incoherence, like I said, the heart brain isn't talking, if we're really stuck in that propelled heart and we're always kind of defining and looking outward, we tend to attract similar people, or we can create more of that drama and chaos in our relationship. As we become coherent, and this is where the power of this work is, we change us. And then not only do we change our perceptions, but how people perceive us changes.
Wow.
So I started to wake up. You and I were talking earlier, how the heart awakens and your third eye awakens. I started to see myself, Danica, like, oh, I could see how that would come across. I could see how that would actually, frustrate my husband, or I could see how I'm coming from a really small-minded place.
Mm-hmm. Or insecure.
Yeah.
Or triggered or.
Exactly. Reactive place.
Sure.
So then you just start to shift. And that's the thing about this work being nonlinear. There's all this talk therapy and there's programs. I'm not saying they can't be helpful, but it's like rehashing. Let's talk about this. It can actually reinforce neural patterns. So the
just
heart,
by talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. The heart
is great to hear for people, because people don't always want to have to rehash things.
No, but there's this other way. The heart has 40,000 neurons. This is what's crazy. The heart sends more messages to the brain than vice versa. So neuroplasticity doesn't just apply to the brain. It means that where the amygdala, all these reactions are stored, all these triggers. When you start to awaken the heart, and we can talk about some simple tools for doing that here, right now, you change these patterns. So it was like the same abandonment patterns, the same things that was going over this, like it was like Groundhog Day with my husband. It was just like the conversations changed, the interaction.
So it just doesn't resonate anymore.
It just
like the frequency
fell away
doesn't
like a
allow
snakeskin
for that thought to even resonate with you anymore.
When I use this word or this phrase heart intelligence, it's a different wisdom that is inside of every single one of us. This is why all the spiritual traditions have talked about the heart. The Egyptians didn't take the heart out of the mummy because they believed it was necessary in the afterlife. They took the brain out. The Babylonians, the Greeks, the Sacred Heart of Jesus Christ, the Anahata chakra, right? The lev used across the Torah. Kalb is mentioned 132 times in the Quran. The Buddhist Heart Sutra. So it's this power center, this gateway. And only in the last 150 years has there been this emphasis on the brain, neurotropics, neurofeedback. I'm not saying the brain isn't important, but what this work is, this heart coherence, is harnessing the heart and brain together.
Right. Coherence is with the brain.
Exactly.
It's that we have to acknowledge that there needs to be a heart aligned with it as well. Is it connected to the gut in a way? Because it always feels like, it almost feels like the signal energetically goes to the stomach. That this is just my own feelings about it. And I would call almost the gut feels a little like the heart, or like they're connected in its information.
Yes.
But like the feeling lands in the fourth chakra for me, right? The feeling of like, oh, this or not that, or, and sometimes the heart lights up as well. So can you use the body and where you feel the energy of information land as some sort of directive to help yourself with this process? Yeah,
so there's 3 brains. You nailed it on the head. There's one in the gut, there's one in the heart, and there's one up here in the head. And so in the propelled heart, there's a whole section where I talk about aligning the heart and the gut. And you can actually breathe into the heart gut as one unit, which starts to create coherence and entrain and automatically sync up the brain in your head. So your thoughts start to align. So you're able to better listen to your intuition. You can start to be guided from a much deeper place. So in the book, it's more like this one unit. To your point, sometimes you may hear it and feel it in lower heart or down in your gut, but there is this somatic sensory information that we can learn to tune into.
And our chakras, do they spin? That's what I feel like I've heard, is that the energy spins or swirls.
So chakra means wheel. So they are meant to move. Energy is meant to move. Digestion, we're meant to digest our food and it moves through, not get stagnant. We're not meant to hold on to all these experiences. They leave imprints, right? These wounds, these heart wounds. So in the Devoted Heart, I talk about this 6-stage process, and there's research on it as well. Deep forgiveness. Because once you start to pull out the surface thorns, you realize these really big blocks. I'm talking about forgiveness yourself, with others.
Which usually ends up being the final stop, right? It's you can forgive someone else, but it's really you for who you were and who
it's just
you aren't anymore. And
different perceptions, right? And so
your experiences, your
everything. Well, it's like at a certain point, I was like, I'm going to, really forgive my parents because they loved me, but, I was left on my own a lot. I wish I was, paid more attention to. I felt neglected. They were hustling, working, loved me, but it was like, I'm going to forgive them.
Sure.
But then there's another level where you transcend forgiveness and you just start to see the perfection of it all.
So true. So I want an apology for like how I was treated. And then in the end, when you finally don't need that from them anymore because you go, look, it's on me and it's for me to alchemize or to look differently. All of a sudden, what you thought you needed as far as sorries or forgive, like you needed something from them. Now you actually want to give them love for doing their best because you all of a sudden see it through new eyes, which usually has to do with their own programming.
You said something really important. You said you want to give, you don't need. Right. Yeah. And so that's a really important topic in the book, and the steady heart is attachment. When we need other people to understand us, we need people to see us. We need a certain amount of likes on a post. Otherwise we feel like crap, or we need to be in a relationship. We need this. We need that. We deplete so much energy and power. And what Swami Sri Yukteswar talks about, this is where coherence really grows scientifically. Once you get to the steady heart, and this is the yogic teaching, you need nothing outside of your own heart. Need. It doesn't mean you don't enjoy life, but once you let go of the need, then it opens you up to even more deeply connect. If you're attached, you can't really connect. So I talk about when my first son was born, I couldn't believe this love. I couldn't believe how much I loved this child. It was the first true love I had. This love, and I just wanted to hold it and always be around it. And it like triggered, like it was just all this abandonment triggers came up because I was like, I need to always be with this child. So it was this lesson in shedding attachment, even with loved ones. And that's one of the things that we realize is, we're so like my circle of friends, my family. But as you awaken the heart, something that happens is love becomes more non-specific. It starts to be a state. It starts to just be what you embody day in and day out. So you become less attached to this person or this person. It doesn't mean you don't love them so much. You feel even more connected, but there's this less of this constricting attachment. So that's part of this. Again, when we work
almost
towards
like conditions in a way.
Conditions, just again, the specificity.
If you need to do this for me to feel good, act a certain way.
Or just like my love only flows to like these 4 people in my family, and like this is my world and everyone else. You could still love your family so much, but you start to, in the clear heart, which is known as heart-brain harmony, this incredible state of being in the world in harmony and flow, which we can awaken from inside of us. You embody love. So you can feel that state of love, whether you're with your partner or not. You can feel love when you walk into a restaurant and just feel that love and see that hostess or that waitress and just feel this connection to the world around you.
So are you feeling just your own coherence, or is there something happening outside of you that boosts it? Or
nothing outside of you.
How do you feel more than at some points in time?
As we go through the stages and the tools of the book, it builds on all these different teachings. But the very, very preliminary one, even now, anyone listening to this or watching this, and as I'm talking to you, Danica, it's so present, part of my attention is also on my heart. So you can actually start to shift some of your awareness right now to your heart. You can touch your heart. I teach my kids to do this. Children, this happens very naturally. Sometimes if you're saying something, you actually touch your heart, right? But this will blow you away. Just shifting some of your attention to your heart. Research published in the American Journal of Cardiology shows that this alone starts to rewire your nervous system. We're starting to go into those 40,000 neurons, right? It's like you look on the ultrasound when that baby comes and the heartbeat comes before the brain is formed. There's this intelligence we're starting to tap into, right? And so in the heart aligned meditation, I'll show you something else. Sometimes we hear like, do a gratitude practice or make a list.
Yeah.
And you can go through the motions, but not really be in it.
Do it.
Embody that energy. So in the heart aligned meditation, some of the steps are you go in, you shift, then you do what's called coherence focused breathing. And there's research to show it's 0.1 hertz. There's a certain type of breath work which creates that entrainment between your heart and your brain. And then we shift into something that helps you recall appreciation. So appreciation is a mix of gratitude, awe, and approval. It's a little bit different than gratitude. It's like this, to me, it just feels like more expansive, right? It's not just like, it feels good. When you actually go into a state of appreciation, this is using the M-Wave Pro equipment from Heart Math, which is very sensitive equipment, more than like, if you wear an Oura ring or something based on an algorithm. Yeah. So this is the pattern. This is the HRV pattern. If you go into a state of irritation or anger, remember I told you 2 minutes drains your energy. Yeah. So you can see how chaotic this is. This means that your organs aren't functioning as well. This is going to pull circulation and blood flow out of your GI tract. This is going to affect your hormones, your endocrine system. Look at this beautiful sine waves. You see, appreciation is changing.
So you just sort of body. Focus on your heart.
Do you want to do a mini version right now?
Sure. Yeah. It's good for people to know how simple it can be.
Yes. And of course there's a lot more information but just a very simplified version is right now. We'll do this in like 30 seconds. If you can close your eyes or, if you're driving, don't close your eyes. Disclaimer, but we're just going to shift our focus to our heart. And it may feel quite natural to put your hand on your heart or not. And then I won't go into all the details of the breath work, but just imagine for now that you're breathing in and out of your heart like a giant lung. Nice and softly, smoothly, slowly. You don't have to count in this version. And now keep your focus on your heart and recall someone or something that makes you feel appreciation, which again is a mix of gratitude, awe, approval. It could be your puppy, your child, your sibling, a beautiful sunset you saw on a trip. And then just for a moment, we're just going to, once you have the image, drop the visualization and just focus on the feeling in your heart. Appreciation. It can feel expansive. To me, it feels a little tingly. And then take one more breath in. And you can start to open your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, you can feel like I feel warmth. It feels...
So when you do the research shows, Danica, when you do the meditation and you stay in that entrained state for at least 2 minutes, this is where the psychological becomes the physiological. You're changing your breath. You're changing your heart rate. You're changing your HRV patterns. You're changing this communication between your heart, your brain, and your nervous system. Yeah. So your coherence capacity, again, 29% in a month. You don't need a biohacking device. You don't need to take a pill for this. This is inside of you. Yeah. This is this power that's always been with us as humans, what the spiritual great ones have always taught, this gateway. When we talk about chakras, there's different points, but this is primary gateway where our humanness, spirit connect, right? And scientifically now this research, this amazing science is backing up what the ancients always knew. Right. So if we can go into some of these tools, and some of them, the Heart Align and the Propelled Heart, there's one called the Heart Align Harmonize tool, which as a mom, my kids are having a tantrum. I'm just like, you can shift into a different state in 3 to 10 seconds. So what I love about this work is it's not that the meditation, if you want, 5 to 8 minutes over here, but you weave these practices into your life. Mm-hmm. So it's like while you're driving and you hit the traffic, or in your middle, you're doing an email and something comes, or you see something about the election on the news or something stressful. You keep coming back to your anchor. You come back here. And over time, you come back faster. Mm-hmm. And over time, you don't leave as much. And that has been my personal experience. I've been in wellness, Danica, for almost 15 years. Been tinkering with diet and sleep and, meditation and so many things. And this heart work ties everything together and supersedes.
I feel like when you say you stay there more often, what I think of is that, yes, I agree. And I'm curious why you think we stay there more often. My own personal opinion is that I no longer like negative thoughts or negative thought patterns or ideas, stories. They feel so uncomfortable in the body that when you spend more time in a good frequency or a good energy or a coherence or whatever it is that's going on, you now have such a delta between like how you normally feel to that negative feeling that it bumps up against you and you go, ugh, and you like don't even feed into it. Like you might have a thought and then you're like, you almost maybe text someone something. You're like, I don't want to waste my energy on that.
Exactly.
And you just don't even, you bump up against your negative feeling, like tries to find its way in and you're like, oh, that feels so bad. I don't even want to do that. So is there science around what's actually happening with why we tend to spend more time in that positive, coherent state once we start practicing it?
Yes. So many things there. First of all, again, as your coherence capacity builds, your baseline for coherence shifts. So now you're in this more, we did it in like a fraction of a moment of one of these practices where you feel so grounded, so present, so much lighter, like your perceptions change. So again, everything that we've always wanted, which is to get out of the confusion and the fear.
I can even feel my diaphragm is
far
more relaxed.
simpler than we ever realized. And so what happens is this becomes more of your new normal. These old patterns, like the reactions, wasting your energy, right? These are like, trauma-induced patterns of like, what do you really mean by that? Like digging in, overthinking, like, so
overthinking,
complicated. Versus here's the heart it simplifies. It's so simple. Like you show up and you just flow. You make the best decisions, right? You just kind of move through life without all this overthinking. So this starts to be your, oh my gosh, this feels so good, right? And so as you grow in coherence, everything works better. There's a section in the Devoted Heart called, the practical benefits of this in commerce, in work, in business life. I'm teaching a master class to Entrepreneur Magazine on intuition and using heart intelligence in business, right? Because as entrepreneurs, we need to tap into those really incredible, unique solutions with our teams, with innovation and products, whatever it is. And so when you're in this really mental linear place, it feels so hard. It feels so hard to get through the day, to make a relationship work, to deal with, kids that are tantruming. Everything just feels so hard. And this is why everybody's looking for a way out. And this is why, people tune out to screens, whatever they do, is smoke weed, they drink, no judgment, but it's because we don't have these tools. It has changed so much in my life, Danica. I can't even tell you. I want to shout this from the rooftops. You can just awaken.
There's no downside. There's no trade-off with this. There's no financial debt. There's no side effects. It's no trade-off.
There's no trade-off. You're learning to activate this again.
Other than a little time, I guess. I mean, when we spend, most people spend a couple hours on their phone a day.
Exactly.
You can spare 2 minutes.
Right. 2 minutes or sometimes 3 to 10 seconds.
Or a barrier to entry, right? If you want to use your phone, like first time in the day, give yourself 2 minutes, right? Some sort of like James Clear life hack where you habit stack yourself, add some layers in to put these things into practice. Cause it ends up having to become a practice before it becomes a routine.
If you do this meditation, even a brief version of it, and there's, tracks that go along with the book that everyone can access, like they're on the site for anyone to go through as well. Do that before you go on social media. Do that before you go on your email because you are in such a more resilient place. You are more resilient to stress and trigger. This other graph I wanted to show you, Danica. Stress is such as we know, such a big killer. It ages us so quickly.
Yeah.
The research that's incorporated.
Is this DHEA?
Yeah. So the cortisol went down an average of 23%, and DHEA went up.
And DHEA is a precursor to testosterone. So it's like a vitality hormone.
Exactly. It's for vitality. It's nourishing. It's important for fertility. It's important for many things. So this was 1 month of practicing these tools, the research that these tools are based on. Everybody's wanting to reduce stress. But instead of recovering once you've already gone into a stress response, what heart coherence helps you do is to avoid the stress. Because it's not the traffic that makes you stress out. It's your perceptions.
Right. So it's not the problem doesn't go away, essentially. But there is no problem because you have a new perception of it.
Yes. So your thoughts change.
So now the red light is actually an opportunity to take a deep breath.
Exactly. Stress is resistance. Yeah. Resistance means I don't like this. I wasn't expecting this. I'm going to get upset. I'm going to get mad that I'm sitting in this doctor's office for 30 minutes. They're taking my time, right? Resisting what is. It's like hitting yourself against the brick wall. Then the body starts to secrete the cortisol and stress hormones. Then you start to deplete all that energy. Then your body goes into fight or flight instead of rest and digest. Everything starts to shift versus, heart says, this is it. Pivot. I move. I flow. I harmonize with what is. This is like the Tao Te Ching saying, it's like 18 references to the water and 81 stanzas. Water moves, right? We shift. This is where our power is. This is where our energy is. It's not the one thing has to work out that way. Or I wanted that person to say this. Or this should have been like this. Or why didn't this work out? Or da-da-da-da. We move and we shift. And so we are a portable container of our own peace.
When I get more into alignment with myself, and the simple way I'd explain it is that I do more things that make me happy. I don't rely on anyone else to make me happy anymore. I don't look for something outside of myself, right? I know how to sort of self-source.
Yes.
Whether that's from planning fun for myself or a practice or something like that. But the more I do that for myself and I stay in a state of joy or happiness or coherence, blessings and synchronicities and life that is intended for me starts rushing. I start rushing down the river. I'm no longer I'm like full steam ahead. And if we're using a river as an analogy for the energy and how it moves, like it doesn't actually, for me, it feels like I'm standing in place and it's coming at me, right? Like I feel like the good stuff seems to be on hyperdrive. Like all of a sudden stuff just lines up so fast, and the business and the person and the this and the that and then the trip, and then like all of a sudden you're like, I couldn't have lined all this stuff up so fast. I couldn't have lined it up in this way if I wanted to. But the more coherence I get, the faster the good stuff comes.
So it's nonlinear, right?
Right. Or at least non-traditional linear for my normal life.
Well, so there's a quality I've always noticed about you since I've met you or known you, and that is this incredible openness, curiosity, aliveness, all these things, but you're so open. Like, oh, interesting. You don't block. You don't keep things in boxes. You don't put yourself in a box. You don't put other people in a box. You're open to new ideas. This is of the heart. The mind says, has to be this way. This is my plan. This person is this, like judgy, like this is better, this is worse, because you're naturally of the heart. This openness, this humbleness opens you up. It's like that, the spiritual quality of surrender to what is, I don't know everything, because we don't. Let the universe come through me and come into, and then we step into that field of the clear heart where there's more synchronicities.
Yeah.
Right? So this openness that you embody, Danica, is why these things are opening up for you. And so part of this work is, again, as I said, when the heart opens, the third eye opens and you can see yourself. I could see in myself, wow, like I actually was pretty rigid in my approach there. And I'm kind of like, I see why this keeps kind of playing out with that friend, or why I'm in the same kind of relationship again. It's just like we see where we close ourselves. So this open heart, the synchronicities. There's a story I mentioned where I was in a really clear heart moment, and Deepak Chopra had reviewed one of my books. But I just felt like, there's more I'm supposed to do here. But I just kind of felt really good. And so this is when I lived in New York City before I had kids. And I was walking to a meeting across Union Square. I always, obviously go across the park. There's a diagonal. But I had this intuitive feeling, walk around the outside of the park. And so I did. And I walked right into Deepak, literally on the sidewalk. And I was like, Deepak, it's Kimberly. You just reviewed my book.
Oh my God.
We connected. We met at a coffee shop a few weeks later, like 4 weeks later. And in 2 hours, we decided to write a book together, which would be called Radical Beauty.
So fast.
Just like that. We laid out the 6 pillars on a napkin. This is for real.
Oh my God.
And so this energy, it's like I said, it's the power moving through us. We have to be really careful to see egoic, like I awaken the power in me, like this very specific. It's that this is a non-specific, like I said, love is non-specific. It becomes more the field you're in. And also this power isn't like, I have this incredible power. It's that we're lifting ourselves to this different field. And so this is where miracles and synchronicities live.
So it's the openness that allows me to see the opportunity and the beauty in it, as opposed to if I was perhaps more closed off, then I might not see it as easily.
So openness is one of the important qualities, but you still want to keep honing your coherence, right? Because there's people that are open and so things will happen, but there's still there can be a naivety. There can be, you can still be incoherent and open. But I'm saying that's a very powerful quality you already have. And then, you've been learning so much. You've been on this incredible journey. You've been sharing with us this incredible journey that we all follow along with. But then, when you start to tap into this, these different levels. And again, these 5 heart stages are not stages I came up with. These were laid out in the Vedas, the most ancient texts in the planet. And so Swami Sri Yukteswar wrote about them. My journey when I started learning about this in parallel with the science of heart coherence, it was like, this is spiritual, energetic, scientific, evidence-based, and experiential. It really works. It's not something you can know about. It's something you really experience. Like we did in the heart align meditation, that was like 20 seconds.
You have to feel it.
You embody it.
I would say this would be true about plant medicine or altered states. You can get there, I suppose, through breath work and different things like that as well. And it's so easy for the experience to get integrated when you have a feeling, because in my experience, it is real and it's so felt throughout the whole body and the mind. You see it, you feel it. It's a true experience. So say your eyes are closed and you're on psilocybin and you see that memory will never leave. And the adjustment's been made because it actually happened. And so it's so embodied. And that's why I think it's important that you said that has to be felt, because you don't actually know, you can't really experience it with the mind, right? You have to feel it to know how to feel.
Yes. And so I think there's different modalities and different things that help us on the journey. And so people can have these incredible experiences on plant medicine, but ultimately you are taking something to go into that state. And it can show you a glimpse. It can show you how light you can feel.
Right.
But this heart work there's a permanency. There's a consistency to increasing your coherence, where instead of, I'm so looking forward to going to Peru and doing that trip, or, going with Shawn, whatever it is, it's like, I can create this in myself.
We were talking about you feeling like in these sort of practices that you can feel that an altered state that is accessible without any means whatsoever other than the breath. So what's actually happening that is allowing you to feel something that normally would take some sort of substance to achieve?
So there's things that we can measure in science, and then there's energetic things that I think are beyond, scientific equipment and human comprehension.
Sure, so much we don't understand.
Yeah, like we were talking about the chakras and like this wisdom, and now they're trying to measure things.
Still don't know what consciousness is.
But but what you can be sure of is what you experience life to be. This is what's so powerful about this, and where I get goosebumps, because this is not, take my advice about this type of diet and like this person's doing this or this person's this. This you will experience as you start to go in and awaken your heart. It will change everything, and it's dynamic. It's nonlinear. Things you can blast through blocks. You can, find your person. When I met John, we were married and pregnant in like 3 months. Daily life is what matters. So we can go on that big retreat and we could have that big experience with the Wachuma or the ayahuasca or whatever it is. And I'm not saying that can't have benefit, because it can for some people, but it's day to day, moment to moment, Danica. We have our hearts with us. Yeah. So this self-sustaining, what Swami Sri Yukteswar talks about in the steady heart, you experience it for yourself. It's like, oh my gosh, I used to, drink a lot at certain periods of my life. And I used to like love that feeling and things. And sometimes I'll, have the wine or whatever. But most of the time, you're just starting to feel so light and good from inside. Here, can I read you this one line?
Yeah, please.
Sri Yukteswar teaches that the core essentials of life are Sat, existence, Chit, consciousness, and Nanda, bliss. These three are the real necessities of the human heart and have nothing to do with anything outside his self. So I was reading this and I was sitting in my hammock in Hawaii and I was like reading this over and over again. And I was like, I get it intellectually, but I feel like I need all this stuff. As I started to take the journey and go deep with these tools, Danica, go deep with these teachings. And it's been now, let's say the journey from me, this really deep dive has been almost 3 years. I'm like, I've experienced that. I've experienced not being this, so attached to my kids, not having waking up at night, like, oh my God, they're going to grow up and they don't need me. This love, this connection, feeling that with my husband, with everything. I'm so connected, but it's inside of us. And not in this sentimental way. And the other thing I said, it's practical. This self-reliance, like Emerson talks about, is able to give you that clarity in your business and let people go and attract the right people and to flow through and to decide where to spend the best time, where you would put your time and energy, how you're going to eat that day, that meal. Everything changes.
It all sounds rainbows, kittens and rainbows, but, spiritual growth, emotional growth is not always easy.
Come on, Danica. This is a great topic. No, thank you, my love. This is key. We flow in the stages, right? So it's like, okay, I get some of this. I'm steady a lot of the time. I still feel dark heart. I still feel propelled. I still go into those states. But like I said, I go back faster. Even last week, I had another ego death, Danica. This is where attachment teaches you, like, if you let the ups, like the compliments, feel really good, guess what? The criticisms and the downs get you. Really bad. So you don't let as much in. So I was on this high last week because I sent the book to Tony Robbins. And guess what? Within 24 hours, he gave me this amazing endorsement. Wow. It's like, Kimberly's so powerful. And, the book is amazing. Like all this stuff from Tony Robbins. So I was feeling so great. And then the next day, I totally respect this, but I had a call with Heart Math and I used so much of their research in the book and they'd edit it. And I was expecting them to kind of support the book and they get on Zoom and they're like, we're science-based, we're really neutral, we do stuff with the military, whatever. So, your book is, has a lot of spirituality in it. So we're not going to support the book. So it was like this, oh, Tony. And I was like, ugh. So it was just like, Spirit, like again, teaching me you're two in the outer. So it's like, come back. So I went into this dark hole for a couple of days in Hawaii and the weather was kind of bad and I was meditating a lot. And I just had this, again, it's not that we're going backwards.
Right.
This journey keeps going, but we keep shedding more of who we're not. So there's still layers of attachment, like liking when people like my writing or liking the stuff. There's a naturalness to it, but also we start to get so self-reliant that we don't have to let it in so much. We start to create more of that resilience and this incredible, knowingness. We are the love. We can give ourselves the validation. We don't need anything outside of ourselves. So I have reached more and more levels of freedom, and then sometimes you go back and you're like, oh gosh, I really hope this works out. And there's a naturalness to it, but also more detachment.
Yeah. So important. I mean, like detaching from outcomes. Like if I could just reprogram my whole damn brain to detach from outcomes, I always feel like people, I don't know, I'm curious what you think. I feel like people tend to think in the future or the past, like generally speaking. It's kind of
always.
It's like
most people.
It's people either usually like sweet or salty. I feel like people think either in the future or the past. So people that think in the past are perhaps, held back by old patterns, like old stories. They get more depressed perhaps. But then maybe a future thinker is going to be someone who gets attached to the outcome, will sort of grind away no matter what to try and achieve it because they see this vision. They don't want to let go. So there's a death if something doesn't happen.
Yes.
Essentially, it's very difficult to let go of what you have envisioned. And you also have a way that you think it should go. So I'm a future thinker. So I usually think in the future and I don't really think about the past much. But is this something that, do you experience this with either yourself or with other people? And
so we hear about, be present and mindfulness, which is really about awareness. We hear these things and they sound really nice and we try to get there.
It's a lot of words most of the time. It's words that don't have a lot of good direction to them.
This is the thing about the heart work. We're going to a different place to find a solution than where the problem is. Problem is the thoughts, the overthinking mind. We're going to the heart, which is completely different energy field, completely different perceptions will give you completely different thoughts. So we say, no, I don't want to be so future minded, but then that's the pattern. That's the neural networks. That's the default setting. So now and you and I were talking on the porch looking out. I was saying, this power of the heart is right here, like this moment, this moment, this moment. So much of us, we say we're future based, but a lot of it is still, I don't want to feel this way that I did in the past. There's something stored in my amygdala that wants me to not feel like a loser, to feel light, to be seen, to be loved, like all these things that we want. So we're so driven to create them, to try harder, to get it. But again, when we step into this heart energy, one of the biggest things I've noticed in myself, because I too was very future focused. What's the next thing I can achieve? Well, this, checking this off the list, doing this and this. We do become so present, really, for real, not just I read that, or saw that quote on Instagram about being present. You really experience deeper and deeper presence because this is it.
It's like a being almost like in a meditative state in a way, you're always bringing it back to right now.
No, heart right coherence now is a different state.
You can't get depressed and you can't get angry or fearful.
Well, right? You do sometimes, but you come back fast and you come less.
Yeah.
So I call the mind in the book is like the wild horse, unbridled. So imagine a wild horse. We were looking at the horses out there just running around, think positively. It's so fake. The neurons, the gateway, the spiritual center here, this changes everything. And you step into that field of presence. It's like the Tao, which I quote more in the Clear Heart. I used to read the Tao so much, Danica. I was like, what's he talking about? That which cannot be named, do nothing and nothing gets undone. We were describing. But there's this power, this hidden power that gets awakened when you awaken this gateway. Time changes, perceptions change, your health changes, you get more clear, your relationships change. It is so powerful. And again, I keep saying this because I'm so passionate because my life has changed. I have changed. My relationship with my husband and my kids. My day has changed. I feel so much more peaceful and light. Things are simpler. If I could give one thing to the world, I feel like we really need this. I needed it,
Well, I think that, as we were talking before we started about the heart, and I was having a conversation actually with two different people now. Someone who is one of my best friends. She went to Peru on a trip and it was a Wachuma trip. And so she got sick. And then, so she only did one ceremony. But she said she sort of stayed in that state for weeks after. And I had an experience too, where my heart had opened from a little bit of this LSD sort of microdose. And my heart felt like it was open like that for a week. And it was the warmth that you feel from it. And I was like, wow, are we entering into a phase of our, of humanity where maybe that's just the state we stay in more often? Or is this is this what's needed right now? And we're being called into this space more often so that we can operate from it, so that we can project so we can create a new reality, because there's no question about where we're at right now as a culture, a civilization. Things are more polarized than ever. Things are more divisive. Things are more turbulent than ever. I mean, we just about lost like 2 presidents in a week. Like, I mean, like the craziness that's going on in the world and, you know, all of the wars that still go on. I mean, there's just so much turbulence. So, you know, I think it's no better time than now to have a book about the heart, because it sure feels like we're getting called on to activate the heart in a really serious way so that we can find our way. Because really, once we change our reality, the reality around us changes. And so
exactly,
it's not about going to do anything, but if everyone looked inside themselves and just said, I'm going to fix myself, like you no longer want to even have a bad thought, let alone kill someone.
Do no harm, right? So Swami Sri Yukteswar, in his book where he laid out these heart stages, he talks about these different ages that humanity is in different periods. So we could say the Kali Yuga, we could say the dark ages, we could say there's a lot of dark heart energy, but contrast, Danica, right? There's opposing forces. When there's darkness, light starts to push up. And so what he talks about, the Satya Yuga, where there's more truth, the more of us go in and awaken our hearts, right? Energy fields intersect. That's how we change society. It's very easy to feel overwhelmed by the news and like, what am I going to do? Like the state of things. Change your heart, like awaken your heart, and your family starts to change. Circles upon circles. The schools, who you interact with at work. It's so powerful. Each of us that awakens is like the most powerful thing you can do to change society moving forward. And then eventually so many of us will awaken. It will usher in a new age. Yeah. It sounds idealistic, but it really is true.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of theories. There's the 100th monkey theory that we were talking about earlier, where once the 100th monkey in a, community like starts doing or believing a certain thing, or they infect the rest of the community with that same belief system, same pattern. So how is that going to work like that for us? I mean, there's lots of sort of ancient sort of prophecies on how many people it's going to take or the percentage of people that it's going to take. But do you believe that to be true? And what's the science behind there being just enough people to literally shift the planet?
So I don't know a number, right? Like, I'm not sure that there's research about how quantifiable it is. Although, there's some really interesting research that HeartMath did in Jerusalem recently, where they were having I think it was 500 people were doing heart coherence tools at the same time. And you can measure the fields. They also have magnetometers in, Saudi Arabia and New Zealand and, Africa, South Africa, all around the world. So they're measuring the magnetic frequencies of the planet. And these people doing the heart coherence tools in Jerusalem raised the coherence levels. It was a crazy amount for those 30 minutes.
Wow.
I can't even tell you, and I keep saying this, but how much it's changed my life and my husband's, right? And I feel like, okay, there's 50 people at his company and like my kids and like when they go to school, and then how many people are in my company. And it's just like, it's just nonlinear. It's exponential. So I do feel like we're called right now. I feel like this book came through me at this time because I think more of us are rising up into light and heart and getting out of the ego. I think it's an amazing time to be alive. And I think we all play a part.
You had mentioned something earlier about working with companies and talking to them about intuition. I'm really curious about that because in the workplace, there is a high value put on the mind, on data, on numbers, and not on the feeling or the intuition of like, it just doesn't seem like the right move. Like that doesn't get a lot of respect. So I'm curious about that work that you're doing in a professional setting with talking to people about intuition, because I think you and I would both agree that there is highly intelligent information in the field informing us through the body, and it can be really valuable, but I don't think that it's been looked at least in recent time, as being a really trustworthy source for a direction to go with the company, or who to work with, who not to work with, who to hire, who not, all kinds of things that could be put on data points are usually used that way, as opposed to, you know what, my gut just says no.
Well, so a lot of these chaotic emotions, for instance, that take us out of seeing clearly or finding the best solution. Let's say we get angry at work, or we start to get resentful or jealous or whatever it is. These are of the ego. These are not of the heart. So from a practical standpoint, there's been a lot of research about how EQ, emotional intelligence, leads to far greater success outcomes than IQ, right? This has been established since, Goleman's book, I think it was like 1990, started talking about emotional intelligence. And there's been so much research around that. This power of the 5 hearts, like this work really does increase your emotional intelligence. So intuition, not just in creative solutions. There's an amazing quote here by Einstein, which I'll also reference. The scientist's religious feeling takes the form of a rapturous amazement at the harmony of natural law, which reveals an intelligence of such superiority that in comparison with it, all the systematic thinking of human beings is an utterly insignificant reflection. The feeling is the guiding principle of his life and work. And there's more of these Nobel Prize winners and scientists talking about intuition. Yeah, this is Einstein talking about it. Basically, emotional intelligence is where we have that steadiness inside of us. We're not caught up in chaotic emotions. There's this calmness. And from that place, we can connect with other people and best communicate, best get our message across without the emotions blocking us. So for instance, it's not just what you say, but how you say it and the energy that you impart. So emotional intelligence means that your teams, there's more productivity. I know HeartMath had done research using these heart coherence tools with the IRS, BMW, like very corporate places. And there was self-analysis, there was, worksheets, there was all sorts of things they used to measure. There was also the M-Wave Pro, and they found higher productivity, more clarity, just things got done better in the workplace. So there is research that has shown that this ability to get, again, the heart finds solutions, it's expansive, it's calm. It's not forced positivity. And when you're in that calm place, you're better able to distinguish as your coherence builds if it's really your mind or your heart talking, because that's something I talk about here. Sometimes we think it's our heart. It's really the ego, right? And so it's like learning to differentiate the difference and then listening to that intuitive guidance. I know for me, sometimes I get my best writing ideas or business ideas when I'm in the shower or I'm just sort of like, on my walk and I'm not really thinking about things. It rises up out of that clear pond of coherence versus, you're in a turbulent state. You may be fear-based. You may be trying to push something along.
Or like when you're trying to remember, you're like, oh, what's the name or what's the book or what's the movie or what's the thing? And then as soon as you like, oh, what is it? And then you kind of like walk away or you do something else or later and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Like you like let go of that grip and like the information is all there. Just don't be a block.
And so another thing that reminds me of, there's so much today around manifesting, right? Like I can create anything I want. And there's a truth to that. But for this philosophy, which is about the heart, it looks at manifestation in a different way, which is as you journey into that clear heart, like I said, you're in this place of synchronicity, you're able to manifest more. But instead of this sort of me, like, what do I want? Like on your own, just kind of like I can create whatever I want. It's filtered through, I'm part of the whole. So it's also like, how do I serve? How do I add back into the field? What is of the highest good? What is the highest and best outcome of my energy, the highest use? So it's different than just, let me do whatever I want. Like I want to be this, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Some people are like, I want to be this star. I want to create this big thing. I want to be wealthy. There's a level of that manifesting, but this heart work shifts things. And I could say it shifted in me what you really want to create. Do you see what I'm saying? It's again, the perception changes. So as your perceptions change, and it will happen naturally as you awaken your heart, what you want to manifest actually shifts too.
Yeah. What's important or what feels good or and you might not even know it, right? Because like when you get out of a certain state or pattern or perception, all of a sudden you shift, right? You become something new. The new you is going to cost you the old you. And sometimes things do fall away.
Oh, all the time. It's like, every heart stage, and I can look back and I can see even when like certain days I'm in a certain stage or certain periods of my life, everything is completely different. So you can't see, but as you keep awakening, you see more. Your third eye opens, like you see yourself.
Yeah. one of the things that I had mentioned to you was about politics and how I normally steer so clear of that. And then I kind of felt called in, and I've really struggled between, am I supposed to use my platform to do something, to speak out or say something or have an opinion? Or do I just live this sort of more zen, less divisive lifestyle of this is how I live. And then that actually becomes less and less charged because I don't show it attention. But or do you have to actually go into something to change it? So, that's some more backstory on my question. But really, as we go into these next, few months of life, the last part of 2024 is going to be really chaotic, and even into 2025, I'm sure, with everything that's going on with the country, with the planet, but with our, political system. There's no way that any of us escape being affected on some level by the things that are going on, with the presidency, with all of that stuff. So, what do we do when something comes up that we are challenged by, that we don't know how we should handle it? Should we speak out? Should we not? What if we, in general, just feel uncomfortable? What if we feel angry? What are some go-to tools that you're going to use, or that you would recommend us use when we get into this place? Because the ultimate goal is more coherence for us and everyone. So how do we do that?
Simplify down to the heart. There's a section in the Devoted Heart called Never Miss an Opportunity to Serve. What does that mean? It means moment to moment. You stay in that gorgeous heart of yours, that beautiful heart. Never miss an opportunity to serve. Getting coffee. Oh, maybe extra kind to that barista. See that person flowing through life. I'll let that person into the intersection. We hold the door open. Let me give praise. In that Zoom meeting, I notice someone's trying really hard, or they're having a hard day. From your heart, the answers will come. So in the clear heart, the questions and the answers dissolve into one. The questions go away. You just are. So there's also this thinking, should I be doing this? In that moment, where is your heart guiding you? But never miss an opportunity to serve means this isn't I'm going to do this 1 week thing here or there. It's life is right here. How are you in this moment? How can you make that person's day a little bit brighter? How can you uplift that person, sitting next to you in the conference room or the school pickup for your child? Never miss an opportunity to serve means right here. So it's simple, but it's through your heart. And then just let your heart keep, it's like the spanda. It just keeps arising up of how you're going to say something in a more loving, kind way. How you can bring unity to that party or that dinner or that meeting, or just that little tiny interaction when you're checking out a Target. Never miss an opportunity to serve.
I love that. Because that's where the
That's
ripples, those are the
exactly.
Ripples, right?
So it's you can see all this big stuff on the news.
Else.
It's all this big stuff, but take it down to each moment of your life. Every moment is an opportunity to go into your heart and to shift that outcome, that interaction, that energy. And these supposedly small little ripples, these micros, create the bigger things. And when it comes to am I going to share about this or that? In that moment, just tune into your heart. And really, the more coherent you get, the more clear these questions are all going to just start to go away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.